Hello, everyone, and welcome into the fantasy football universe. I am Aaron St. Dennis. Find me on Twitter at FFMadScientist, joined by Jeremy Schulman at FF_Rebel. We are here to talk a little bit of day 3 of NFL free agency. It has not been an overly exciting day. We actually have to dip back into last night. That's where we're going to start with Deontay. Deontay was what, 7, 8 o'clock last night? So after you and Jesse were on the air, we had a few trickle in, and we'll start there. I guess that's what we'll talk about first. Diontae Johnson traded from Pittsburgh to Carolina for Dante Jackson and a pick swap. What are your thoughts here on Diontae? It's got to help his value, right? There's nobody else in Carolina. It certainly helps Bryce Young, you would think, but thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, well, my first thought is like Joe Mixon getting dealt for a seventh, and now Diontae with the pick swap of a seventh. It's just depressing that like we have these still relevant, like good players being swapped for pretty much nothing. It just shows you the state of the NFL and the level of talent, which is a good thing. There's a lot more parity in the league, but at the same time, it's depressing to see a guy like Diontae Johnson, who's still very good wide receiver, can get open, like you said, can help support Bryce Young and what they're trying to do over there in Carolina on offense. And, the NFL doesn't value them nearly as much as it seems like they should.
I get not wanting to cough up anything for a 27-year-old running back, but a 27-year-old receiver is peculiar to me. I would have thought he'd have a little more value than that. Let me zoom in a bit here. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, with Diontae, like you mentioned, he's a separator. That's what he does, right? So in the Pittsburgh offense, if you think about Pat Freiermuth, who was kind of working the intermediate area of the field, not a separator. George Pickens, who was working the boundary and getting open deep, not a tremendous separator. Diontae Johnson was operating everywhere else, right? So if you kind of take his skill set and transplant it into the existing Carolina offense, the ghost of Adam Thielen is probably still running around there, most likely for Bryce Young, but they don't really have Tommy Tremble at tight end. I don't know who else they have. They're probably not going to bring in anyone there. Jonathan Mingo, who hasn't really proven that he's going to be able to do anything. And then, Chuba Hubbard, who's much better than Miles Sanders at this point. They still have a ton of work to do, but they're starting to piece it together. I believe they signed a major guard in free agency whose name is failing me right at the moment. Do you remember who they signed? Maybe it was a tackle.
I can find it, but
I'm just taking a look. Damian Lewis, the guard from Seattle, right? So they signed him for 4 years, $53 million. So they're really starting to put some of those, and Lewis is only 27 years old. So they're starting to put some of these pieces together who can be there for the long haul. So I love this move for the team. For Diontae, I agree with you. It's a lateral move, but nothing that's going to diminish his fantasy value for me. It might even rise a little bit.
I think almost everyone involved is a winner value-wise. It helps Pickens. It helps Freiermuth. It helps the running backs in Pittsburgh. It helps Diontae. It helps Bryce Young. Like, you could say it might hurt Jonathan Mingo because it means he's probably not a thing, but he wasn't really a thing. Yeah. I don't think I would argue that it would. 49ers release Eric Armstead. Oh, okay, that's just official. Sorry. I don't think it impacts Adam Thielen. Like, at this point, I think he could use the help. The only person besides Mingo who I could see it negatively impacting is Russell Wilson, but like, it's one less pass catcher for Russ. That can't be great.
Yeah, I mean, there's two things that are most likely to happen as a result of this move. And I think it's that, number one, Pittsburgh absolutely has to go after a wide receiver, and it's most likely going to come in the draft.
In the second round, like it does every year?
Yeah, I think so. We know that Pittsburgh has a pretty decent history over the long haul of drafting wide receivers and having them hit, right? So here's just another example of that being the most likely scenario. We need to get Russell Wilson pass catchers. They have the run game, right? There were a ton of jokes going around that, well, Arthur Smith now has his one wide receiver offense again. listen, nobody's that dumb. I don't want to put it past Arthur Smith, and we hate him for fantasy, but the guy does win, and we know they have two capable running backs back there. But Calvin Austin isn't the guy, right? Like one of the biggest transactions that happened as a result of this Deontay Johnson trade in fantasy leagues, that Calvin Austin is being picked up anywhere. That's not the solution. Pittsburgh's going to go after somebody else. So that's number one. And then number two, Carolina needs to continue building this offense. So whether they go after one of the top tier tight ends in the draft, or whether they go after a wide receiver, they probably need to do both. And I would prefer to see the Carolina team build around Bryce Young. I think it was Carolina a few years ago who went all defense, right, with every single one of their picks. I'd love to see them go all offense this time, even though they don't have a ton of picks.
No, I was thinking the exact opposite. They got to go all defense in this draft. They gutted their best three defensive players walked yesterday.
True.
They lost everyone. Who'd they lose? Frankie Louvu, Jeremy Chin, and the best one whose name is this Burns. Thank you.
Burns, yeah.
They can't afford to use any picks on another wide receiver or anything. The best part of their team was the defense, and they gutted it. So I don't like what they did here.
As you can see, they signed Amir Smith-Marset back, thank goodness, on a 1-year deal.
Oh boy,
on that list there. So they'll be fine. They'll be fine.
Let's move on to Patrick Mahomes, who wasn't a free agent signing, but he converted some money to signing bonus to clear up $21.5 million of cap. Oh, who's the name who's escaping me? Who's rumored to be looking towards Kansas City? It was all over Twitter, and I can't remember. What wide receiver?
There's two names. There's Hollywood Brown, and there's Mike Williams, who was just released. So those are the two big rumors right now.
Oh, I would very much prefer Hollywood to Mike Williams there, wouldn't you? Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. But the interesting thing is we know that Patrick Mahomes, if he's developed a rapport with you, he doesn't have any issue throwing up the YOLO ball. You'd prefer to see those YOLO balls go to Hollywood because he's younger, because he's faster, and has the ability to likely get behind the defense, and Mahomes to utilize that big arm. But with Mike Williams, I mean, if the guy could just stay healthy and stop like jumping 15 feet in the air and landing on his hip all the damn time, he would actually be a very, very productive NFL wide receiver. Problem is, I just don't, he's not going to change his game. Hollywood Brown would be a much better fit there, I think, especially to take some of the pressure off of an aging Kelsey.
I like that if they go Hollywood. I have two receivers that they could get dirt cheap and pray that Mahomes can turn him back into something. And you're going to think I'm crazy, but I love the fit on both. He needs a big guy, a deep threat, and a possession receiver. Let's see if he can get a healthy Michael Thomas on the field. I love it. That is exactly who he needs. Okay. And if there was a receiver who I think fits this as a great slot receiver, it's the recently released Hunter Renfrow. I think Renfrow and Thomas, I get it. There's health issues, age issues, but they're the exact type of receiver he could maximize, where it's like, oh, how do these guys have 90 catches this year? They're both dead, but I don't know. I think they're dirt cheap, and I think both of them could still have fantasy relevance if they went to Patrick Mahomes. I know it's insane.
I don't hate Renfrow, the Renfrow call. I thought you were going to go a different direction when you said slot receiver and say Curtis Samuel, right? Curtis Samuel is kind of
significantly more expensive.
Well, he's what they wanted Kadarius Toney to be, right? Like Toney is just dust at this point. He will, for whatever reason, he can't get it together and put those tools together into meaningful production on the field. Curtis Samuel has proven that he can do that. And with Andy Reid kind of scheming up whatever he wants, and Patrick Mahomes executing it, you can get, as long as the guy is like capable and like is heady enough to like stay on the field and not go lose his shit, basically, Curtis Samuel can be that guy that they were hoping Kadarius Toney could be. But I don't hate the Renfrow call either.
Got a lot of guys who don't matter here. Isaiah McKenzie to the Giants doesn't matter. He was with the Giants before, wasn't he? And then the Colts, and then back to the Giants.
He's a day ball guy from Buffalo days.
Amir Smith-Marset, Carolina, that means nothing. Salvon Ahmed, he left Miami and came back again as well, didn't he? He go Miami, Denver. Let me look it up.
No, he's in Miami last year.
Was he? I thought he was. Who did they get rid of? They had 9 running backs.
They did.
Who the hell was the other one? There was another one in their 8-headed running back room that they got rid of 2 years ago. I forget who it was. Anyways, it's not important. Yeah. Nothing important here. As I said, Hunter Renfrow was released. He's someone I think could be useful as a slot receiver, a third down receiver. I don't mind him on Detroit. I would love to see him in that third down role that they had, what's his name, Josh Reynolds operating under, because Hunter Renfrow doesn't drop that ball Josh Reynolds drops, and the Lions are probably in the Super Bowl. I like Renfrow there. Do you think he has anything left?
I don't. I think he would have shown it. He had a lot of opportunity. I know he was hurt 2 years ago, and he had a lot of opportunity there to get back on the field. It just never happened for him. So for me, I'm out on Hunter Renfrow. I don't care where he goes. I'm not in. Just like I'm out on Austin Hooper, Pharaoh Brown, Jimmy Garoppolo. But this is an interesting question here from SC, our guy. Which wide receiver does not move the needle for you if they get picked up by the Chiefs? Is there anyone that you could see who's a decent wide receiver still out there in free agency who wouldn't move the needle for you, like an Odell Beckham or you said Michael Thomas, so apparently anyone can go there and they'll be relevant for you, no?
No, I don't mind him. Mike Williams, I don't love, with the injuries, but I think he'll have his games of relevance. Allen Robinson's third on the free agent receiver. Well, Renfrow was second. I like Renfrow. Allen Robinson's probably my answer. I have no interest in Allen Robinson there. Tell you one I'm looking at. I know he's 29 and he's been the third man on Cincy for the longest time. If Tyler Boyd has anything, I feel like Tyler Boyd should have made this move 3 years ago, but I don't mind Tyler Boyd. An underrated one that I would love, I wouldn't mind seeing DJ Chark there.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think Chark has proven that he has a little bit left, and he's a nice little compliment to Patrick Mahomes. Again, we just talked about him potentially throwing up those YOLO balls. Chark has proven to be a contested catch guy, so you see this similar thought process when you're saying, oh, Mike Williams to the Chiefs, that could work. DJ Chark can operate in a similar fashion, be 85% of Mike Williams, potentially stay healthier than Mike Williams, and still provide value to that offense. But again, for my money, I think everybody's right on the money with Hollywood Brown. He's the guy that you want because you need that elite field stretching option to complement Rice, Travis Kelce, and whatever they're going to do, either coming out of the backfield or putting another guy on the boundary and having him operate in the intermediate levels of the field. They just need to get more weapons. Hopefully it's Hollywood for them.
New England signs tight end Austin Hooper. I have almost no interest there. Where was he last year? Carolina?
Who cares? Sounds right.
Fair enough. Pharaoh Brown goes to Seattle. So as they ship out 6 tight ends and re-sign one, they bring in another. So it's Pharaoh Brown and Noah Fant. Just brutal. We already knew this, didn't we? Vegas released Jimmy G.
Yeah, Garoppolo's done. Yep.
Cleveland signs Jameis Winston, who I think could very well take over the job from Deshaun Watson.
I mean, here's the interesting thing, and we talked about this a little bit yesterday, is that Jameis Winston is super interesting because we know he's a fantasy relevant quarterback, right? He's not a good NFL quarterback. He puts the ball in harm's way too much, even when he went to New Orleans and Sean Payton was helping to coach that YOLO ball mentality out of him. You still saw the terrible decision-making from Jameis Winston, but it's great for fantasy because if he's taking over there and throwing it up to Amari Cooper and, giving Jerry Jeudy a number of opportunities and getting Elijah Moore involved, David Njoku, we like all the weapons. And we even like Jameis Winston for fantasy. That becomes a fantasy relevant offense all around. Hopefully they don't need to use him because Deshaun Watson figures it out and puts it together. But like you're saying, I don't know if that's likely at this point.
One sec.
Yeah, no worries. But elsewhere on this list, we have Michael Thomas. Like you said, he could go to the Chiefs. I'm not a huge fan of any move involving Michael Thomas. I think that's pretty much done at this point. Tyler Davis, who cares? Matt Collins, who cares? Signing with Buffalo, coming over from Atlanta. He's an NFL wide receiver, but that's not going to move the needle. They got to bring somebody else in. And then something we'll have to get into at some point are the offensive line signings here. You see Morgan Moses moving teams. The Jets have a right tackle, so that's only going to help Aaron Rodgers as long as he doesn't become vice president running mate. for the upcoming election. But yeah, there's a lot of interesting and relevant offensive line moves that have happened too. But we'll save that for another podcast. So if you're only interested in fantasy, you can tune out on.
Yeah, that's the one thing I haven't between articles, podcasts. There's no offensive lineman in any aspect of fantasy. So aside from the deeper mock drafts where we're talking NFL mock drafts, I haven't dove into the tackles at all. I could tell you Joe Alt's the best rookie tackle in the class. Other than that, I can't tell you much. Matt Collins, nothing like you said. Lil Jordan Humphrey, just following Sean Payton around. Harrison Bryant, nothing there. Where did he play last year? Cleveland?
Cleveland, yeah.
That's nothing. Goes to Vegas. Mike Williams just released. That's interesting. I guess we can talk about Williams. Where would you like to see Williams land? And where do you think he will land? And don't say the IR.
On his hip hard. If it isn't Kansas City, there's a few places that make sense. The first place is Carolina. We've been talking about that all along. That seems like a really good place fit for him, given what they're doing, and Carolina trying to develop Bryce Young. Another place is potentially Baltimore. I don't know if they have the money to bring him in. I'll have to take a look at that, but that would be a really interesting kind of replacement for Odell Beckham Jr. Certainly, they do different things within the offense, but Baltimore only has one wide receiver already. We already talked about the needs in Pittsburgh at wide receiver. Mike Williams could potentially help that out. And then, of course, the New York Giants, who just need pretty much everything in terms of offensive weapons on that side of the ball, even though Devin Singletary is now there. We know Jalen Hyatt and Wan'Dale Robinson are capable. But I think the real answer here for Mike Williams is it doesn't matter where he lands. I think he's probably going to be overhyped for fantasy. Even if he doesn't get injured, he's learning a new system. He has to develop that rapport with the quarterback, and he doesn't separate. So he's a contested catch guy who's going to rely on those 50-50 balls. So for me, I'm probably out of Mike Williams at cost.
That's not true. He separates his shoulder at least twice a season. I say, based on cap room here, Tennessee's not a bad spot. They don't really have anyone. And I guess that'll segue into our next one. Tennessee re-signs the best running back on their roster to a one-year deal, Julius Chestnut. I know most of you just said, who the fuck is Julius Chestnut? But that's the guy out of, what was it, Holy Cross? No, it wasn't. It was Sacred Heart. Sorry, Sacred Heart. I had high hopes on him because he had lots of talent, but he went undrafted and just never made it. I think he has some potential there, but with Tony Pollard coming in to ruin the day, no dice. Kyle Juszczyk restructures with San Fran. I'm not sure what's up with that. And the last one to get us up to date here a few minutes ago was Brett Ripien signing with the Chicago Bears. Justin Fields, I don't know, is his job in jeopardy? I don't know. If he doesn't lose it to Caleb, he might lose it to Ripien. Is there anything else in here that you wanted to talk about? I know it was kind of like I said, most of the news was left over from last night that you guys didn't get to, but there's not a whole lot going on today. It's pretty slim pickings.
Yeah, I think what we're going to see is a few, it's after 4:00 at the moment. So free agency is finally official. That doesn't mean much except for some of these releases. And we still have probably what amounts to behind closed doors meetings happening with some of these remaining running backs. That's still on the market.
No, that was
Dobbins, AJ Dillon. Those are probably Alexander Madison, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. There's at least names that NFL teams are going to be interested in bringing in. Does it move the needle for fantasy? I'm not sure. It will depend where they land and who they draft. But
you read my mind. I was transitioning to that, trying to find the list of some of the remaining guys at each position. And do you see anybody here? We'll start with the quarterbacks. Is there anybody you think really, we got Tannehill, Jimmy G, Teddy's retired. I don't know why that's listed. I didn't mind Tyler Huntley in his limited time, Joe Flacco, Josh Dobbs is going to get 3 games somewhere. Like, I think after Dobbs, there's nobody. Is anybody here that you really would like to see land in a specific spot out of the remaining 6 or 7 QBs?
No, I mean, I'd be surprised if Flacco gets another chance. It's not that he doesn't deserve it. It's just that age is showing up. He's going to need a similar spot to Cleveland where that offensive line is intact and ready to go. He
Do
could
you
be
think?
on like the Roger Clemens plan, where like, the last few years of his career, he just gets signed mid-season and comes in and plays a few games and tries to make a playoff push.
Well, that was going to be my question for him and Tannehill. Do you think they both a similar situation to Cleveland last year where the starter goes out and they get signed mid-season for
Could be.
Tannehill and Flacco? I don't see, or even, could be training camp. Someone loses a quarterback in
Yeah.
camp. So they say, screw it, we'll bring in the bridge quarterback here.
It
Something
could
like
be.
that.
And look, I don't hate Jimmy Garoppolo. I think he's been wrongly vilified. I don't think he's a good NFL quarterback and doesn't really deserve a starting position. But at the same time, I think he's in that upper tier of backup quarterback where he's knowledgeable enough and skilled enough to like come in a pinch and win a couple of games for you if you need it.
I think this is going to sound crazy, but I would like to see Tyler Huntley go to the Raiders. I think Tyler Huntley could win the job for at
Mm.
least 1 year if they're going to, because what do they got there now? Aiden O'Connell, and who'd they sign?
Marriott, no,
Yeah.
Gardner Minshew. Gardner Minshew.
Minshew. I think Tyler Huntley, when Lamar went down, what was it, 2022? He showed some potential, and he's only 26. I think he's a great guy to bring in. Let him compete out of camp, because out of this list, I think he's the only one who I could see having anything left in the tank here. Josh Dobbs is inevitably going to sign somewhere, play good for 3 games, and then be traded again. But
Well, I mean, that just speaks to, the whole point here, right? Tyler Huntley is Josh Dobbs, is Justin Fields at this point. We see these NFL teams who are just, obviously there's different skill levels within that group, but at the same time, all of those guys share the inability to accurately, consistently deliver the football in the passing game. And that's really the concern for a lot of these NFL teams. If you're struggling as a passer, Lamar Jackson is probably the lone exception because he's still a good enough passer and the elite of the elite rusher to kind of get by and easily have his starting gig. But we're going to see it this year with these rookies. If Jaden Daniels and Drake May can't accurately, consistently deliver the football in the passing game, they're not going to be long for the NFL either.
we'll get through some of these last positions here quickly. We've got less than 10 minutes probably to go, but running back still available. Cordero Patterson, he's 32. I'm not interested. We've got some younger guys here. Madison's 25, CEH 24, Akers 24, injury concern. J.K. Dobbins 25, injury concern. Then we've got Damian Harris kind of in the middle, 27, Hunt 28, Zeke 28, Deonta Foreman 27. Like there's some, I don't think there's a league winning bell cow there, but certainly Zeke last year was better for fantasy than anyone thought. I think the obvious one that's the high risk, high reward is not even high risk. At this point, I think if you can get J.K. Dobbins as a throw in on the trade, pray. But that's another one where you need to have a spot for him on your bench because I don't even know if he plays this year. And if he is, it might not be till second year. And I get it. He's had a leg injury plus 2 ACL injuries. He may just never play again, but I get it. It's not going to be a thing, but I don't mind taking a prayer on him. Same can be said with CEH. I think CEH, I'm out on Madison, but is there anyone here that moves the needle for you?
I agree with you with Dobbins and CEH. Those are 2 of the best names on this list. Dobbins, you're just hoping for a turnaround and health because he's proven he can do it. CEH, you're just kind of banking on that draft capital and the fact that, look, maybe he never should have been taken as a first rounder. But at the same time, he was always going to go as a high to mid second round pick in the NFL. So you just kind of bank on that talent is still there, and hopefully he can turn it around. The other name on that list is a little further down that list, just out of view, is Ty Johnson. Ty Johnson had a kind of a bit of a resurgence last year in Buffalo on a couple game stretch. He's proven that he can be a serviceable NFL back. Is he going to be a good one? Probably not. But in terms of talent and youth, I'd rather bank on him than someone like A.J. Dillon, who's just going to be way too overhyped and has proven that he can't do anything.
That was my question. My next question. A.J. Dillon, no interest.
No, it's over for him. I was a huge A.J. Dillon truther too for years. The size, you love to see it. The fact that he can catch the football, but he just hasn't been able to put it together in some of the better situations in Green Bay over the years. So yeah, I'm out at this point.
We'll skip the wide receivers because as I clicked on the page, I realized we discussed most of them already with the KC potential. We'll go to tight ends, and that's where we'll end it. The only one really on this list, like Logan Thomas, I get it. He's never healthy, and he's 32. Yeah. CJ Uzomah was a big disappointment. Tunyon had 1 year. Jimmy Graham is 37 years old. Oh, my God. I didn't realize it. Like, and I always thought Adam Troutman had potential, but like, I don't know. I'm looking through this. It's got to be Logan Thomas for me or bust. And even that, draft a rookie tight end, I think. This is an ugly list.
I think you can scroll up and just look at the names of the tight ends who have already been signed and just understand that the list of free agent tight ends is that much worse because these are guys who were signed over those other guys. I mean, maybe you take a shot at somebody like a Tanner Hudson, who proved that he could do it in Cincinnati last year when other tight ends, more talented tight ends like Irv Smith, have failed. But yeah, I totally agree with you. This tight end class is good enough where all of those guys are going to come in. NFL is showing it to you right here with this list. Those guys are all going to be drafted to teams, many tight ends. And some of them are going to be in positions where they can, try and take advantage of them the way that Sam Laporta was able to last season. So we'll see.
Here's all you need to know about the free agent tight ends. Colby Parkinson got 3 years, $22.5 million.
I don't know what that is.
All right. Well, that concludes a rather bland day 3 of free agency as things settle down. We've still got some wide receivers who are going to have to land somewhere, but basically it was more exciting players released than signed. So not much to do here. Check back in. I think we're going to go live a couple more times today. Once at least later for a rookie mock draft at 9:00 tonight. Not sure if we're going to also squeeze in the IDP free agent show or not, but if we are, just keep an eye out on the channel and come watch that, or head over to our website, fantasyfootballuniverse.com, where we have all of it going up daily. For Aaron and Jeremy, thank you all for tuning in. We'll catch you next time.